Okay, back under the RV. Earlier I talked about vapor lock and how I experienced it a couple of years ago. And so I was trying to figure out, troubleshoot it. I was trying to determine if I had vapor lock or if I had a fuel pump that was failing. So in my experimenting, I had with me, this is out in Arizona, I had with me at the time one of those remote thermometers, like you put the thermometer outside and wirelessly it will give you the temperature. So I had one of those with me, and I took it and I just tied it right here. And on our next little, the next town we was going to, it was still hot, 90 degrees. I was monitoring temperatures, and so from right here I was getting like 150 degree temperature. And so another thing is, I figure what may have been happening on that particular day, because I believe as you get higher in altitude, the fuel boils at a lower temperature versus at a lower altitude, and or sea level anyways. So it was my thinking that what was happening with our system, the older, I think before 2004, you would have your fuel line would run up to the fuel rail at the engine. Pressurized, the regulator would be at the fuel rail. It would drop the pressure down and then pump the fuel right back to the fuel tank. But in doing so, and pumping all the way up and all the way back, it took all the heat from the engine back to the fuel tank. So it kept cycling over and over, and you get more and more heat in the fuel and more emissions. So I think in 2004 they changed the emissions or the laws, whatever, whoever decides that stuff, so that they would make the return loop back at the tank, like I showed you earlier, at the fuel filter. So now the fuel no longer pumps all the way up to the engine and returns all the way back to the tank. Now it does the loop right there next to the fuel tank where the fuel filter is. But in doing so, I got to thinking about that. With this system and this fuel line being so close to that muffler, it's not like that fuel's passing by very fast. It's just whatever the speed the injectors are spraying that fuel. So it gives that because that fuel is moving slowly, it has enough time to pick up all this heat off this exhaust. If that's getting 150 degrees, and on the day that I vapor locked, it was like 90 degrees, and I was on top of a mountain. I don't know what elevation I was at, but it's high. But anyway, after I kind of troubleshot that, I stopped at an AutoZone. I found this material here. You see it back here. It kind of looks like an asbestos sleeve. Well, I took this connector loose and slid this over my line, and it goes all the way up past the muffler. It's like 2 foot long, I think. So that helped to keep the heat off that line, because that's what it's made for. It's made for like racing engines and stuff. So to keep the heat off the lines and prevent vapor lock. And then I also added this bubble foil and some of this shiny duct tape and foil tape. And ever since I've done that, I've probably put 25,000 miles on it since then. And I've been out west, this was 3 years ago, my first trip out west, and I was out there again last year, did about 10,000 miles or so. So we average 13,000 miles a year. So I do my best to try to keep everything running. But you can see how I ran that, so it deflects all that heat off that fuel line as it's passing the muffler. So that has helped me. If you ever know of anybody that may have had a vapor lock situation, or you climbing a big hill on a hot day and you just lose power, pops and cracks, and you pull over to the side, this might help you also. Something else I did. Let me turn around and go the other direction. Oh, let me change this light. Okay, something else I did to help alleviate heat and try to get a little bit better performance. From the factory, this is a 2005 Winnebago Voyage and W24 chassis. For my particular model, the two pipes, it came out into a Y just above the differential, and Y together into one pipe that exited out behind the wheel. But I'd seen other RVs of the same year and the same chassis where they didn't do that. They did just like this. They had an individual pipe for each muffler. So that's what I did. I went and I just got rid of all that heavy pipe that was going out so far. I got rid of it, and I thought, well, this might help alleviate some of the heat, because we had pipes going up and over into the differential back behind close to the fuel tank. So And I thought, well, maybe it had, maybe it helped alleviate a little back pressure too. I'm not really for sure if it did that or not. But I got these, I think these are called mandrel bent elbows. So it keeps a nice smooth shot. So I got one on each side now. So this big 8.1 Vortec can breathe a little bit better. And it does seem to perform well. So maybe it helped. I think it did anyway.